Hi everybody, welcome back. We are going into more equation solving today, and they're going to get progressively more complex throughout this video. So the first ones are fairly easy, and then they get a little bit harder. So equation solving is nothing more than what it means to solve an equation is to find, for this example, for all equation solving, it's to find the value of the variable or the variables, because there may be more than one in other types of equation solving. Find the value of the variable that makes the two sides equal. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't move the terms around. You can and you should, but that's what it means. Okay, and we can always check our work later on to see whether we've got it right. So for this one, what we're going to do now. You can do one of two things, and eventually this will become automatic, you won't even think about it. You could add these two together right now, they're like terms, and then you could move the 7 over to this side, which will produce a -7. Here's why. What you're doing is you're subtracting 7 from both sides, okay? But I don't advocate writing this unless you're really very, very new at it. Don't write that, just move it, and if it moves, then it takes the opposite sign, and it reduces the clutter. I've seen students in grade 11 and 12 still doing that, the -7 on both sides, and then the +3x on both sides, or whatever they need to do, and it becomes very long and cluttered, and it's not necessary. So my advice, don't do that. Just, if you have to move a term so that it's on the same side as its partner, the same kind of term, then just move it. And now you can do the math of those two numbers. So then what we get is we get 7x is equal to 14, and to finish we just divide out the 7 and x is equal to 2. Okay, nice and simple. Now the other thing you could do, and this is not really that different, and I kind of like doing it this way, is to not actually do any math until I have everything on the side that I need it on. And then in this step, we're going to go 7x equals 14 and divide out the 7 from both sides, and x equals 2. So anytime you're equation solving, what you're really trying to do is eventually you're isolating x. You're getting x by itself. And it's always nice to have it on the left-hand side when you're done. Your teachers will like that. And when you're solving equations, what's happening is you've got this sort of V happening, this V shape. Where, okay, if I write the x equals 2 at the bottom here, you know, it's doing this, and that's how it should look. So one step at a time, you are undoing things that are being done. So this 7 is being added, now it's being subtracted. We're undoing it, and that's one step in the process of getting that x by itself. Then this 7 and that x, they're being multiplied. So they're glued together, which means they're being multiplied. And to undo multiplication, we divide, don't we? Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So up here, we subtracted 7 from both sides, except we didn't write it that way. We only wrote what we needed to write. And here, we're dividing 7 out of both sides to give us a final answer of 2. And here, it's just a slightly different setup, but really no difference in the method, okay? So this one is not that different from the last one. The difference is we're going to end up with a negative variable here, negative variable term, and that's fine. We can deal with that, no problem. So let's do -3y, because that's what 2 minus 5 gives me, -3. And then we're going to move the 5 over to this side, which will make it positive. And then we rewrite the left side, because there isn't anything I can do with it right now. Add 13 to 5 to give me 18. And to finish off, we just divide out the -3 for y is equal to -6. Now remember, you can always check your work and see whether you've got it right. So what we're doing, again, I'll reiterate, is when we are solving equations, we're looking for the value of that variable there that will make this equation true. So if I do this, 2 times -6 minus 5 times -6 minus 5, that should give me 13, okay? And you can always check your work this way. So this is -12, 2 times -6. Here we have two negatives being multiplied, which will make a +30, okay? You can't subtract the 5 from the negative 12 right now because that would be violating BEDMAS rules. Alright, you always have to keep BEDMAS in mind. Brackets, exponents, division and multiplication, so we've got multiplication happening here, has to happen before we do addition and subtraction, okay? So the 5 and the 6 have to get multiplied before we add them to the 12. And then minus 5 equals 13, okay? And now we do the math here. So 30 minus 12, subtract 10 and subtract 2 will give you 18, minus 5 gives you 13. Okay, so then you know you've done it right. Okay, so for this one, this no different from the last two. We're just going to collapse those two to give us negative 2. We're going to move the 4 over here, which will make it minus 4, because right now it's a plus 4. Then negative 2x is equal to 8. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and x is equal to negative 4. And one more like this, and then we'll move into some work with brackets. Okay, so I'm going to do this math because I can, and at the same time, I'm going to move that 5x over. That'll make it positive. Okay? And then the negative 52 is all that's left on that side. So then 8 plus 5 is 13. Okay, so how many times does 13 go into 52? Do you reach for your calculator right away, or do you try to give it some thought? 52 divided by 2 is 26. And 26 divided by 2 is 13, and there we have it, okay? So 13 plus 13 makes 26. When we do that again, it makes 52. So then we know that 13 goes into 52 4 times. And of course our answer is negative, because a negative divided by a positive is negative, okay? And that'll be our final answer. And if we were to plug that negative 4 in here, and in there, the two sides would be equal, okay? You can try that on your own. So when you have an equation that's got brackets, the first thing you really need to do is remove the brackets. In the step where you're removing the brackets, you could do any other math that is legal to do, in other words, that doesn't violate BEDMAS. There isn't going to be anything we can do here though, so first step is we're just going to take off those brackets. Now what that means is that we're multiplying the 2 through the brackets like that, okay? Now, minus 3. I know a lot of students who will erase the 6 and put a 3 because they can anticipate that it's going to be 6 minus 3. I wouldn't do this. Okay, it's hard for your teachers to follow your work if you're writing a test, and it only takes an extra step to do that math. One that won't take you long, and it'll really reduce errors, okay, if you write out your work. So we're just going to write this side. Okay, now what I want is I want the variable terms, so that's this term and this term, I want them on the left-hand side. 9 times out of 10, that's what you want to do. Sometimes the variable terms will end up on the right, but then in the final answer you just switch them up so that it says x equals your answer, okay? However, I don't want to move anything around until there's nothing I can do on either side, okay? So on this side, I can do this math here, can't I? I can go 2x plus 3, because that's what 6 minus 3 is. And then the other side we just rewrite, because there isn't anything I can do there. And now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to move my terms around. So I'm going to go 2x plus 3x, moving that 3 over, and I'm going to go 8. That stayed on the same side, so the sign doesn't change. Move the 3 over and it becomes negative, okay? Write this step out, because a lot of students will end up with 11 here, okay? Because they see the 8 and they see the 3 and they add them. But the 3 is not added to the 8, it's subtracted from it, okay? So write this step out, it will save you endless headaches, okay? Now we're going to collapse each side, we're going to do the math. And this is a nice easy one, we just end up with 1, okay? Alright, so for this one we've got 2 brackets. Last one we had 1, this time we've got 2 sets. It's no different from the last one. We're going to distribute the 5 and we're going to distribute the 2. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, okay? So here we get 10x minus 15 is equal to, okay, don't add that 11 to the 7. You can't do that yet because you have to multiply first. Multiply comes before addition, okay? So we end up with 6x plus 14 plus 11. Now, do the math that can be done on each side before moving terms around. There, okay? The only thing I could do was add the 14 and the 11 to give me 25. That's all I could do because these are different terms and those, well, you can't add 6x to anything on that side. Okay, now we're going to move the terms where we want them. So we want this 6x over here, and because it's positive over here, it's going to be negative on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, we have 25 plus 15. All right? Okay, so 10 minus 6. Remember, just ignore the variable. Do the math with the coefficients. The coefficients are the numbers next to the variable. That gives us 4x. And 25 plus 15 is 40. All right? If you're not sure about stuff like this, then write it out. 5 plus 5 makes 10, carry the 1, and that adds up to 4, okay? And then we divide out the 4, and x will be equal to 10. Okay, so again, we have 2 sets of brackets. Nothing very difficult about this one. The only thing you have to be aware of is that this minus sign, what it means is that you've got a minus 1 in front of that bracket. So you have to multiply through -1. You have to take the brackets off. Right now, this x is locked in with that 2, that x is locked in with that 4. The only way we can unlock those x's is to distribute what's in front of the brackets and get rid of those brackets, okay? So this is going to be 5x plus 20. We're multiplying through, we're using the distributive property of multiplication. And here we're multiplying through, like here we're multiplying through 5, here we're multiplying through -1. So minus x minus 2, and then we just rewrite this side. Okay, you want to more or less stack your equal signs. If you have extra work that you have to do, extra calculating, go and do that off to the side where your teacher can see that you've done the work, and then bring your step answer, as it were, back into your steps, okay? And we're going to do the math that we can do on this side. We've got 5x minus x, which is 4x. And we've got 20 minus 2, which is 18, right? And then on this side, we can't do anything, so we just rewrite them. Now we're going to move the terms where we want them. We want the variable terms on the left. We want the constant terms on the right. So we're going to write 4x minus 8x. The 8 was positive here, so it's negative here. And then 2 minus 18. We get negative 4x here. We get negative 16 here. We divide out the negative 4 from both sides, and we end up with positive 4. Now some of you may be wondering whether it's possible to avoid all these negatives. If you anticipate that you're going to end up with all negatives, by all means, move the variable terms to the right and the constant terms to the left. So if I did that from here, I would get 18 minus 2 equals 8x minus 4x, right? And then I would get 16 is equal to 4x, and divide out the 4 and divide out the 4, and I get this. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like this answer, okay? I mean, it's right, but we're not defining 4, we're defining x. So this is fine if you want to do it, but as a final step, I would move these terms around. And I mean, you can anticipate that this is what you're going to get, so you don't even have to write this part. Again, it's up to you, but when you get into inequalities, particularly, you don't want to write inequalities like this, ever, ever, ever. You always want the variable on the left. I think it's best to write the variable on the left, and you're almost always going to be doing that, 99 times out of 100, okay? Alright, so just another example. So let's just work it. So the 4 gets distributed through, the minus 5 gets distributed through, and there's our right-hand side rewritten because there isn't anything we can do with those terms just yet. 4 minus 5, negative 1. 8 minus 5 is positive 3. Okay, we are now going to move this y term over here, which is going to make it negative, so that one moved. And we're going to move the 3 to the other side, making it negative. So this is like the last one, where we end up with negatives on both sides. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you know, you divide out a negative, it's not really that difficult. And there's our y equals 2 answer, okay? Okay, a way that this could also be done, which I don't really like doing it this way because I think there's more potential for error. But what you could do is, once you've got the brackets off, you could move everything where it belongs. Again, I don't like this way because I think that you have a better chance of getting things wrong. Because the more you have to move, the better your chance that something isn't going to have the right sign. It's better to do the math with everything that you can and then just move a couple of terms around. It's a lot less likely that you're going to make a silly error. So we have 4 minus 5 is negative 1, minus 1 is negative 2. And then negative 8 minus 1, if you will, is negative 9 plus 5, negative 4. Divide out the negative 2, divide out the negative 2, and of course we get the same answer. But I like this method much better. Okay, so you take each side and collapse each side as much as possible. So do the math with your like terms. And only when you can't do anything on either side, then move your terms around. Alright, I think it's just a better method. Alright, so this one has 3 brackets. No problem, we can do this. Okay, so the method's exactly the same, except you have to distribute 3 times instead of 2. So we get 14x minus 7 minus 10x plus 12. Okay, a negative times a negative is a positive. Equals, those two make 8x, and those two minus 10 and plus 7. Now, do all the math you can do on each side. Just don't even look at that side and do all the math that you can do here. So 14 minus 10 is 4. 12 minus 7 is 5. Then on the other side, this is the only variable term, so we just rewrite it. And then minus 10 plus 7 is minus 3. Okay? And then we're going to move the terms where we want them to be. Alright? So we have to move the constant term to the right, and we have to move the variable term to the left. Whenever we move a term to the other side of the equal sign, the sign will change. Okay? So then we get negative 4x here. We get negative 8 there, we divide negative 4 out of both sides, and we get our answer, which is 2. Okay, that's it for this video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for lots more math coming up. Thanks a lot, see you next time.